guys, it's Jouelzy, and it's another day of beta. Oh my gosh, this is coming to the end. It's like August 30th, and I didn't do 31 videos. Yeah, I suck at this, but let's just get into this video. We're gonna talk about what's gonna happen after the 31st. Later, girl. Mercury in retrograde. How y'all doing? How y'all feeling? This is total accident, even though the topic of this video is cultural appropriation. I just didn't feel like taking my bantus out because it's like 8 o'clock. Don't worry about me. It's been about a year to date since the internet was taken by storm when a British Nigerian penned that article telling African Americans to stop appropriating African culture. She was infuriated after seeing this picture from Afropunk and perceiving that these African Americans were taking advantage of African culture. And since Afropunk just took place this past weekend, I thought it was such an appropriate topic to discuss in this beta. So let's dead this conversation about African Americans appropriating culturally African culture. It's annoying. It's not productive. It's going nowhere. And I'm going to explain to you why. One, it lacks so much nuance, and it really just turns into a conversation about who hurt who. I called your people African booty scratchers. You said my people's is lazy. And really, we have to own it that as an oppressed people, it is indefinitely hard to hear a group of people accusing us of being the oppressor to them. But both sides are wrong. We have to find a way to acknowledge each other's pain and then move forward in a more productive conversation. That does not mean that we deduce each other's personal narrative, but we strive to do better. Like, truth be told, this conversation about African Americans appropriating African culture ain't even about us. Low-key, it might be about Nigerians versus everybody else. But I keep getting tagged on Twitter and Instagram every time this cultural appropriation conversation amongst the African diaspora pops up. And oftentimes, it really isn't even African Americans who are doing the appropriating. I was tagged because people were upset about kente cloth being used in bathing suits. It had gone from Instagram to Twitter. People are furiously tweeting about African Americans again appropriating African culture. And I'm like, hold up, but the girl that owns the clothing line that's selling these bathing suits is British Nigerian though. A good bit of it is the smaller countries, those that are not like Ghana or Nigeria, feel like they get left out of this conversation a lot about cultural influence and have some feelings about not being acknowledged in the larger context. It's like, look, my sister from the Gambia, I do acknowledge and love you. I just love that it's the Gambia. The influence of African, specifically fashion and music and food and colloquial language coming into the mainstream context has to do with the advent of wealth populating amongst these communities and them traveling and resettling and immigrating to other places. Not even just that there has been an influx of African immigrants since the 1960s in the United States, but it's also that these communities have settled down, have created their own communities, and have a certain amount of wealth to project their culture into the mainstream context. This is why people like David Ho are getting American record deals. There is an audience here that is demanding their culture and their music be accessible to them here, that they don't have to go back home to get it. And so it is a part of cultural exchange that is happening on the ground here, and it is largely being controlled, well, maybe by the Nigerians, but it's being controlled by, Africans themselves. With that wealth coming into these communities, we have second and third generation immigrants of the diaspora going back to their home country to establish businesses that connect them to the rest of the Western world. When I was in Accra, I saw so many people, ran into them that I knew from New York. Tons of Ghanaian dudes that I'm like, you are clearly from the Bronx. I know you're Ghanaian, but Bronx is written all over you. I can see it, and a lot of them were home establishing businesses so that they themselves can control some of the cultural exchange that is happening, because it has been co-opted so much by the Chinese and the Europeans. there is a community of West Africans who are utilizing their culture to build businesses on an international and global level. Maybe there is a conversation to have about how capitalism commodifies local cultures without the actual local people benefiting from it, but that's the conversation that has to happen within those own communities. Hello, my Caribbean cousins. I see you over there grinning from ear to ear. We all have to let go of this idea that we are better than each other or any other group, because we all got skin folk that ain't the kin folk, and there ain't shittedness. The thing is, African Americans at large can't leave where they're from to immigrate to another country and leave behind all the less than qualities of their people. It's kind of like our business is just on Front Street for everybody to see. We can't really hide the less than stellar aspects about our community, and low-key, I'm kind of happy about that. It forces change to happen here on the grounds more productively. It kind of benefits poor Black folks here that we can't just hide them and act like they don't exist. Forces us to fight for their rights too if we're going to fight for our own rights, but that's another video for another day. But do understand that every time we point to each other and say that because your people are lazy, because your people are schemers and scammers and any negative pejoratives that we can throw at each other, we are feeding into the white patriarchy and imperialism that precipitates the poverty and violence in both Kingston and Chicago. And besides, due to their proximity and location, there is a shared history amongst us. And you, my African American cisgender brother, cousins, I see you over there in the corner getting ready to go toe to toe with the Africans about how they came over here with their nose in the air against us. Chill out. You cannot expect anyone to do better if you are not putting in the effort. It's really so very simple. So I'm going to give you some tips, but first, we're going to acknowledge that every last one of us has some lazy, ignorant cousins that ain't doing nothing, scratching their butt on the stoop and in the bush, who care more about Jordans or Manchester United. There is not an elite or more culturally aware ethnic group at large amongst us. We as a community of the African diaspora have made it through the shackles of imperialism and slavery. Some of us were dropped off on the islands, others of us were left in the Americas, and some of us made it back to the Gold Coast, on down to Biafra and up to Sierra Leone and Liberia. One brother might have been sold and shipped on a boat off to slavery. The other brother was forced to work a land that was once owned by their grandfathers, and now, colonialism, it happened. It wasn't a walk in the park at all. Our communities were castrated both on the continent and through the diaspora, and we all came out of it with distinct and beautiful cultures. We should not be fighting each other, but the pillars of oppression that make it impossible for any Black nation to flourish holistically. Now, on to the tips for my people here in the Americas, right? It is really simple to kind of ease the ire that some African immigrants might have, just by investing a little bit of knowledge. I mean, like, Nigeria has 3 major tribes, even though they will give you that speech about having thousands. It's a lot of them. But the 3 major ones are Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. And if you politely ask somebody what ethnic group they are, they might be like, oh, so what you know? I just know about them 3. I know it's mad more, but I just know about them 3. Keys open doors. It's like, aha, Biko, what you know? And besides, like, Chinua and Wole and Chimamanda are some great writers, of the entire sub-Saharan Africa. There is tons of literature and literati that came out of the post-colonization independence movement that was at the same time as the civil rights movement. And a lot of these readings will connect right back to our own history here as Black folks in America. So you learn a little bit, you learn a little bit more. The doors, it doesn't stop. Ghana they love Nkrumah. I stay pronouncing that man's name wrong. He was the first president of Ghana. He was also a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. He pledged, he did not skate, and he pledged at Lincoln University. Look, just tell a Ghanaian they got the best jollof, even if you ain't never had it, and they'll like you. If they're Congolese, be like, are you from the DRC? That's the Democratic Republic of Congo, formerly known as Zaire. Or are you from Brazzaville, Congo? You are no longer an ignorant American. And plus, Lumumba is like, bruh, learn about Lumumba. Be put on, because it's like, wow. The CIA was shiesty. Kenya is run by the Kenyatta family, who also was instrumental in the post-colonization independence. Harambee is not just the name of somebody gorilla. It was actually Jomo Kenyatta's political platform. He was like the first president of Kenya. Jomo Kenyatta, Harambee, my nigga. Yo, and let's not forget some of like the smaller, often less discussed nations like Burkina Faso. They had this revolutionary leader named Thomas Sankara. I keep saying it won't come back to your own history, but not really. Thomas Sankara was like a Che Guevara fan, right around Burkina Faso on a motorcycle trying to help, like he was like about to put it on. And then, you know, of course, European powers, bang, bang. There's a whole section of Southern Africa, not just South Africa, but like Namibia, Zambia, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, that was heavily impacted by World War I and World War II. It's like we always think about white folks with the world wars, but they were world wars. And there's a whole other continent that, you know, was colonized largely because of what was happening in the politics between World War I and World War II. And then, bruh, the history of like Israel and Zionism being founded and how like what they were trying to do with Uganda. It's just a world full of like facts that I'm telling you, it matters to us as Black people of the world. Now we're at an age where the things just get shared a lot more rapidly. We have a lot more access to each other the world over. And so there's a lot less excuses for the kind of blatant ignorance that some of our own people are propagating. And the better starts with us. It starts with us individually. I think there's a lot of people that just don't care about anything. My dad doesn't want to go back to Africa, not because he has a thing against Africans, but the man just don't care. And it's like, come on, you have auntie and uncles back home that don't care neither. They be like, Chai, eat some stew. They just, you know what I mean? They don't care. It's not even that deep for us. We have an interest, and we need to allow our interest to move us forward rather than getting us stuck in a singular space. And it does take some time in us educating ourselves and us educating others and being understanding that we might look alike, but our narratives and our personal stories are impacted in different ways by the same thing. Like, yes, there is a shared identity in being Black in the Western world, but how we get to that point is quite different, and we have to give space for those differences to be expressed and respected. You know, a lot of us want to hold each other to standards that we ourselves don't even live by. So let's stop with the projecting and just hug it out. I shame my queens. For $2 to $5 or more, you can support Smart Brown Girl and help to launch the Smart Brown Girl podcast, tour, scholarship fund, and flourishing community of awesome Smart Brown girls. Visit patreon.com/Jouelzy and become a Smart Brown Girl patron today.